From the campus of Volunteer State Community College, this is Inside Politics.
Hi, I'm Nancy Hauskins.
And I'm Jessica Morin. Welcome to our post-election wrap-up on Inside Politics.
Well, for many of us, it felt like the election that would never end. It was at once ugly and inspiring, monotonous and momentous, and most certainly one for the record books.
Joining us to talk about the changes ahead for our country and our state Representative Mike McDonald and Volunteer State Associate Professor Grady Eades. Thank you both for being here with us today.
Well, as we said, big changes on the way on many fronts, both on the national front and on the state. Let's start with the biggest race, obviously. President-elect Barack Obama, clear win over Senator McCain. It was the strongest showing for a Democrat since Lyndon Johnson's landslide victory in 1964. Only the third Democrat to win more than 50% of the vote since World War II. Representative McDonald, what do you think led to such a huge win?
The economy.
Undoubtedly.
I think that's the real key. I think the economy had deteriorated to the point that people just wanted to try something else. And Senator Obama, now President-elect Obama, capitalized on that, ran a brilliant campaign in terms of using new technology. He had folks sending text messages and cell phone calls and organized people like I've never seen before in American political history. They said as many as 1 million people on the ground knocking on doors and getting the vote to turn out. It was just an extraordinary campaign. But I really think the economy was the reason that people voted for a change. And I think the war is still a factor as well. But it was on down the list. People vote their pocketbooks. And when you don't have a job, you're ready for a change. When your 401k turns into a 101k, you're ready for a change. And when you don't have health insurance, you're ready for a change. And I think that's what happened across the country. Right. Here is a northern African-American senator from Chicago, Illinois, who won the capital of the old Confederacy, Virginia. And that's really extraordinary. Right. And so that says something about the demand for a change in the country.
And not as close, Grady, as we had discussed just a few weeks ago that we thought it would be.
No, absolutely not at all. In fact, I think the conversation we had thought it was going to be a much tighter race. President-elect Obama did extremely well in the Electoral College, and even the popular vote. The last numbers I saw were saying that he ended up winning the popular vote by about 10 million, which is exceptionally high for a popular vote difference.
Definitely.
Now, Professor Eades, a few weeks ago on our show, you talked about the unbelievable amount of money that was spent on this campaign, the most expensive election in U.S. history, $2.4 billion between the candidates. As mentioned last time, there's a debate about whether this will be the end of public financing. What are your thoughts on that today?
Well, I guess first I'd also like to throw in, I read an article earlier this week that was saying, yes, $2.4 billion between the two candidates, but overall, when you look at this election going back to basically December '06 up to today, we're talking $5.5 billion total, something along those lines, which is an exceptional amount of money. Now, I think the conventional wisdom is that perhaps public financing is going to go the way of the dodo. Given how much money Barack Obama was able to raise outside of that system, and was able to use that in a variety of really powerful ways, not just with the feet on the ground, but for television spots. I mean, one of the things that I was reading was that 30-minute spot that he did on television was really just because he had so much money left over at the end, he needed to find a way to be able to spend it. Now, how true that is, I mean, I don't know for sure, but that is a wonderful example of if you can raise that kind of cash, buy that kind of time, still have money left over, public financing seems quite antiquated in comparison.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in congressional races, apparently money talks as well. Democrats had more cash to spend and were able to win 23 of the 35 most competitive Republican-held U.S. House seats. At this point, as we sit here today, there are 5 more races still to be determined. On the Senate side, Democratic hopefuls captured 6 out of the 8 most vulnerable Republican seats, spending more money in all but 2 of those. It begs the question, did money or the desire for change win this race?
I think money is a vehicle. I mean, you can't run a campaign without money. And the reason, and I can answer it in one word, media. If you're going to buy media, you have to have money. They don't run your spots for free. So the Democrats were very successful in their fundraising. The last I saw, Senator Obama's average contribution was about $100. These were not large sums of money from individuals. These were a lot of individuals with small sums of money. They were asking for $5 and $10, and I think the average contribution was about $100. But it just takes money to run campaigns, and you know, I've even noticed that the media will increase their prices right before an election. They know that you've got to buy it, and they'll go up on what they charge for television spots and radio spots and newspaper ads and so on. And I agree with the professor. I think that 30-minute buy that the Obama campaign did at the end, probably they needed to use the money, but maybe more importantly, it was a last opportunity for him to get his message out, and 33 million Americans watched that 30-minute buy. So money is a factor in politics, always has been to some extent, but with the advent of television and all the satellite and cable channels that you have to buy now, it's really an important factor.
If I may piggyback off of a comment that you made earlier with Obama's campaign as far as the way it was run and the technology, I think that's actually one of the ways that really, I think, helped make a difference for him as the campaign went on. It wasn't just the money or the desire for change, is that he had a grassroots organization that got regular people involved with $5, $10, $100 donations so that people feel invested in the process. I think when you feel invested in what's going on, then you are much more likely to be involved, to want to go vote, to get your friends to go vote, because you have a stake in what happens. And from a historical perspective, I can look back at previous elections and see that the candidates that win are those that have been able to say, this is really about you. This is part of that process, going back to Jackson all the way in the 1820s, all the way forward. When people feel like they have ownership and an investment in the election or the candidate, voter turnout is higher, more people come out to participate, and I think that's a large part of it.
Sure, definitely.
Let's take a look at the electoral votes across the country. As we sit here today, President-elect Obama won at least 349 of the electoral votes, John McCain 173, with North Carolina still undecided. Senator Obama was able to win many states and suburbs that have traditionally gone Republican. What was it that created this movement?
Well, again, I think it was dissatisfaction with the status quo. You had Republican leadership for 8 years, and people became very dissatisfied with that. They became dissatisfied with the war in Iraq, which has lasted longer than World War II, costing about $10 billion a month. And the dissatisfaction with the war, the dissatisfaction with the economy, the dramatic downfall in the stock market. Again, I think people vote their pocketbooks, and they were just ready for some change. If you don't have a job and you can't support your family because you don't have a job, that's a big factor when it comes to voting. And in September, I don't remember the exact numbers, but a huge job loss in the month of September. And I think right now we're up around 700,000 people without jobs. And I just have to think that was the main reason that people got involved in the Obama campaign. They were ready for a change from the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I wonder to some degree along the change line. I agree with the idea that the economy and the war certainly played a huge part in that. I wonder if just simply the inspiration of, I mean, that sounds like a horrible reason. You can't really judge it, you can't quantify it in any way. But I know lots of, particularly in terms of the youth vote, at 18 through early 30s category, where the economy part is not so much of an issue for them, but they were mesmerized by his ability to promise a better future, a better tomorrow, and that I gave a lot of hope to that, what I think was kind of a pivotal demographic this time around, to say politics doesn't have to be the way that it always has been. Here's a leader that speaks to us, that can bring us the kind of change and movement, really, that we want. And I think that's important to remember, is the campaign was not just a campaign, it was a movement in a lot of ways. And I think that inspired a lot, particularly in places like suburbs, to make a big change.